Hello and welcome back to One Trek Mind with me, Raptor.
And me, Michael.
And today we're going through both the season finale of Strange New World Season 3 and also giving our view on the season as a whole. And like last week, we're going to do a sort of talk ourselves through the episode and sort of give our thoughts as we go along. And Michael, it's your floor.
Well, we begin with a captain's log where we learn that Patel is cleared for duty in her new field, and Pike reveals that he's got a little surprise for her, and it's like a little dinner party. During this scene, we see Scotty get duped the same way Uhura did back in season 1, which I thought was a nice little callback.
Yep. And
we also get a Doctor Who reference, which was kind of insane.
Yeah, kind of a weird out of the left field, that reference from Pelia. Like I said to you at the time, there was a comic book crossover. So if Pelia is literally talking about the Time Lord Doctor, then that means that, that interaction is officially canon now, which is crazy.
We also get this little line about something Batel said when she was in her crazed state when she saw Gamble back in episode 5. I think it was Kali Kachna. That's what I wrote down anyways, so I'm thinking that's the best way I could phonetically say it. And they learn that this is the name of a city that Corby is researching right now where they worship the Vesda as gods.
A very Stargate SG-1 Gaul sort of situation. Big, evil parasite is actually a god sort of thing going on.
I was going to say, I actually really liked this opening to the episode because not only was it kind of light and fun, but I feel like it's a good setup with the city that Corby's researching being a place where the Vesda are worshipped as gods. I agree, it did feel very Stargate to me, which I was not complaining about. I'm like, ooh, this could lead to some interesting new things, but I feel ultimately I'm pretty disappointed with that because the episode doesn't really do anything with that premise of a city full of people who are worshipping them, aside from one scene.
They brought Gamble back for this episode, and initially the whole setup made it seem like, there was going to be quite a lot of purpose to it, and in the end, I don't really think they achieved that much with him. It was nice to see him back, being recreated from... Basically, he is a clone of Gamble, which does bring up a whole manner of various problems with the transporter. Essentially, it means that if you have a transporter, you have a cloning machine. Now, yeah, the transporters created clones before, Thomas Riker, for example, but this isn't requiring any malfunction or bouncing signals off of stuff. This is literally cloning someone through the transporter,
which to me makes sense when they said
it does
that the Vesda took little pieces of the pattern buffer that were of Gamble and recreated him. I was like, honestly, I'm surprised it's taken this long for that to happen in any of the Star Trek shows. We get again this nice little cross-cutting scene where they make this realization about Gamble, and at the same time we see Corby on the planet where it's revealed, Gamble's right in front of him and is still very, very evil and possessed by the Vesda and everything. So it's a nice little segue into the intro. I will say I did think Gamble's outfit was a little goofy for me. It wasn't.
I thought it wasn't
awful.
I thought it was okay.
It's a little goofy.
Although it did remind me of a character I once created on Star Trek Online, which had the same sort of head equipment.
After the intro, we have a meeting where the crew is like, okay, well, so we've got a serious problem. We need to go and find him. But the planet they're going to is not very Federation friendly, so they have to kind of work out how to best approach it, keep a low profile, which, again, pretty standard fare for a Star Trek
standard
episode.
Stuff, yeah.
We then get another scene with Battelle where she explains how she feels like she needs to be on this mission and feels this strange pull towards something that she doesn't understand.
Yes, there's a lot of "I'm destined to be here" mumbo jumbo from various characters in this episode, and
Too much, I think.
Yeah, it's okay to have that in your story, but it feels like in this particular episode, it was just used as a crutch to put characters in certain places.
At this point, we go to a scene where M'Benga and Una distract two guards, and La'an Vulcan nerve pinches the both of them so that they can all make their way to the chambers above. We made a nice little, I guess, rapport between La'an and Chapel, where Chapel's like, I tried to learn how to do that, and La'an is clearly more successful at it. You said it was because of her augment DNA, but I feel like that was more them just saying, you know, she's a trained fighter and she's more like physically capable than Chapel is. I didn't necessarily think it meant she was like actually stronger.
It is a bit unclear because initially the Vulcan nerve pinch was always supposed to be Leonard Nimoy came up with the idea because the Vulcans were always considered to be more intelligent than human being, but also stronger than a human being, and so to naturally have the ability to knock somebody unconscious with just a very strong pinch to a particular nerve group seemed logical for them to be able to do. That's how the nerve pinch came along. As Trek has gone on, whether it's the strength component that's required or just knowing where to hit the person, it's become a bit mumbled. Like in Next Generation, Data could do it, which, you know, is positive to the strength bit. But then when Picard had Spock's dad mind meld with him, Picard was then able to do it, which suggests that it's actually the placing of the hands rather than the strength that's important.
And we've also seen Burnham do it, and Burnham and Picard are definitely not physically like amplified or anything.
So arguably, it's probably both, to be honest. Like, you could probably do it through sheer strength or do it through being clever with where you're placing your hands. But when it comes to La'an, either argument could be the case there, I think.
Back on Enterprise, we have a scene where they're kind of trying to figure out how Gamble made it off the ship without being detected and where he went. And they discover that he likely traveled along an interdimensional ley line, as they say, and could use this to free all the rest of the Vesda. So, you know, we have an issue here.
And again, like, two things occurred to me during when they mentioned these. One, isn't this exactly the same sort of network of connections that Enterprise discovered the spheres having? And again, there was a missed opportunity there to maybe make them, you know, a side effect of the spheres or whatever, because they were talking about them being used for interdimensional travel, which is exactly what they were for in Enterprise. But also, we've had the mycelial network be a thing, and now we've got like this other network. Like, how many more of these weird subspace networks do we need to have that just allow you to travel great distances when the plot requires it? It did make me kind of roll my eyes a little bit.
I kind of accept it just because it is the universe we're talking about here. The amount of possibilities are pretty endless when it comes to travel. So I'm like, I'm fine with it, honestly. I kind of wish we saw it happen just to get a little better idea of the logistics behind it, rather than just have it be theorized that that's likely how it happened. And then at this point, we get a scene where it's clear everyone on the planet is in full-on worship mode for Gamble, and he like instructs them to gouge their eyes out, which was pretty graphic. Grim. I was like, oh shit. That just got really dark really fast. But my issue with this is that's pretty much the last we see of the people on the planet. There's even a line later in the episode that, oh, you know, they're all saved now. And I'm like, except the ones who cut their eyes out. Like, are we forgetting about that? Did we go back and heal them all? Like, regrow them eyeballs or something? I doubt it, considering they hate the Federation, apparently. I don't know. That was kind of a wild scene, and again, I feel like a missed opportunity. I feel like there could have been other moments where he used those people against the crew of Enterprise because they worship him, but again, they're not really brought up or done anything with for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, it struck me as a bit strange that on this planet of people that don't like the Federation and who apparently required a lot of trusting to allow Corby to even go up to the top level where Gamble's waiting for him, that actually they are perfectly happy with random strangers wandering around said top level when they eventually get up there. There's like, it doesn't really compute. Like the whole, do they need to be trusted or do they not? Basically, the people on this planet become entirely superfluous to the plot almost immediately after the opening sequence.
Yeah, I feel like you could explain it away as Gamble wanted them up there, so he, instructed them once they arrive, let them do their thing, but then that doesn't really explain Pike and Patel being there later and also
exactly.
not having any pushback. So yeah, I do feel like, again, some oversights here when it comes to the actual people who are being subjugated by the Vesta. But anyways, we then get this little scene where Kirk basically says to Pike that he and his captain are willing to help. They owe him one. It's just a brief little scene, but I feel like you from the former episode, 4.5 Vulcans, where I'm like, do we need Kirk this much in this series? Yes. It did feel like, okay, this is like the 5th episode this season that we've had him included, and he's not the captain yet, so why is he around so much? It just feels kind of weird.
And what's even worse in this circumstance is he's talking for his own captain of the ship. He's not the captain of the ship, he's the commander. So he's talking on behalf of the captain of his starship, who's agreed to help Pike. And I'm like, what? You don't have the right to do that. This is a conversation that should be between Pike and the captain of your ship.
I agree. Yeah, it's just an obvious, let's throw some more Kirk in here. And again, I like the actor who plays Kirk. I don't want to get that twisted. Like, I think he's doing a good job as Kirk, but there's just too much of him at this point. Like, we're only in season 3. We've got 2 seasons left. We don't need to have this much of Kirk on the show simply because it's a prequel.
And his presence isn't really necessary here. Yes, they dream up this technobabble reason for why the Farragut and the Enterprise have to work together at this point, but it's not necessary. You could just technobabble the Enterprise being able to deal with the situation on its own. You don't have to have the Farragut and you don't have to have Kirk as a result. But they're here in this episode because, oh hey, let's just put Kirk in this episode again.
Yeah. Also, I feel like there are so many episodes where they're like, you're the only ship in the sector, you have to take care of the problem. It always seems to be very conveniently when you have to have 2 ships that there is suddenly another ship in the vicinity close by. I feel like that's a bit convenient sometimes. Back on the planet, we have M'Benga and crew finding a mural that basically shows M'Benga's life story, and it reads him and his DNA, opens the portal, which Gamble has been waiting for, and he knocks all the others unconscious with his Dark Jedi powers, which I kind of took issue with. I was like, what? You didn't have those in the previous episode.
No.
I don't know where these dark smoky powers came from, but anyways. And then he pushes M'Benga through the portal, they disappear. I take issue with these superpower things because not on its face. Star Trek has plenty of times shown superpower level people within the confines of the shows. I mean, you could argue Vulcans are super powered. They have telepathy and can meld minds with other people. We've had the ooze creature that killed Tasha, and it just telekinetically smacked the shit out of her and killed her. So I'm not against the idea of superpowered beings being on the show, but the way it's done here feels like it lacks oomph. It feels like a Marvel movie kind of, where it's just oh, I'm just going to use my powers to throw people around, and it's I don't know. The vibe I got from it was kind of tacky.
Yeah. I'll give my thoughts about this a bit later on when we start talking about Patel and what happens to her.
Yes, because then we move on to the scene where Gamble makes it clear that he needed them to come because M'Benga was destined to be the person to open this particular portal because for some reason he's connected to Gamble and the Vesta that's possessed him. I don't know. It got really confusing to me, to be perfectly honest.
I got out of it is the portal needed both good and evil to open it. So there always had to be two of them to open the portal, not just one.
Which, calling M'Benga good versus evil is kind of crazy. The man is portrayed as a murderer.
Yes, he murdered somebody.
More than somebody's. In the war, he went fucking wild. He killed a lot of people. I don't really buy that argument of it. They needed good and evil, because I'm like, you could argue the Vesta is pure evil, sure. Nothing really indicates that there's any like good qualities to him, but M'Benga is probably one of the least pure members on Enterprise. Like, if you had said Uhura, I'd be like, okay, sure.
I do actually have quite a problem with this episode's opinion that there is such a thing as good and evil in itself, which is a different discussion to have. The idea that something can be biologically predetermined as evil.
Slippery slope.
Right there. Yes, they kind of techno-babble it through as, oh, well, throughout all of evolutionary history, every planet, every society has had these demons or evil creatures or whatever. But I don't know if I buy that idea. That isn't Star Trek. Star Trek has presented quote-unquote evil people before. The Changelings, the Jem'Hadar. At one point, the Klingons and the Romulans were considered the evil guys.
Or the Cardassians.
But in all of those circumstances, there's always been the Romulans, the Klingons, the Cardassians, the Jem'Hadar, the Changelings that were not evil, for want of a better term. Even in the Borg, there were the individuals that were not evil. Hugh, for example. So this idea that the Vesta are just predetermined evil and that there's predetermined good to counter it just doesn't strike me as very Star Trek in its messaging.
I agree. It feels a little more like Star Wars. Like...
Yes.
With the idea of, you know, this dramatic good versus evil thing going on. And I'll admit, I don't hate the idea of evil versus good, because I do think in real life, there are some pretty objectively evil people or things in the universe. But I do think it's a spectrum. It's not necessarily a black and white scenario of pure evil, pure good. I don't think either pure evil or pure good exists. I think evil and good do exist, but not 100% on the other side of the spectrum for both cases. Again, I don't hate what they did here, but I also don't like it. It's
too simplistic.
Yeah, it really boils it down to something really simple when, again, we thought they were going to do something very complex with the Vesta, potentially with the Gorn, and clearly that is not the case, because we do wrap up the Vesta storyline in this episode. But moving on, in this scene we have Gamble begin to destroy the statue of the Beholder back on... Ooh, I can't remember the name of the planet.
Not gonna, to be honest. But the planet that was in episode 5.
Yes.
Where the Vesta were discovered.
Yes, and as soon as he begins to destroy this sort of activates Batel, because you see the same injuries appear on her, and then her eyes turn into a constellation, which, again, visually it looks cool, but especially with the explanation they give in the episode, I think it's kind of dumb.
Yes, this is for me the point where the episode very rapidly goes downhill. Sharpish. It just becomes complete... I'm not going to say nonsense, but it just sort of...
becomes fantasy as opposed to sci-fi.
Yes.
I feel like.
It doesn't become... It's not... The explanation provided is not science fiction. It is just... Basically might as well be Harry Potter. and I don't think it makes much sense either in that regards. But I don't know. Explain. You explain what the explanation is. I'm sure you have it written down.
I mean, I barely. Vadia 9. I did write it down. That's the name of the planet. So they examine Battelle in sickbay, and Chapel discovers that her life signs are the exact same as the statue they found on Vadia 9, which makes them all go, huh? What? How is she the statue? That doesn't make any sense. And this isn't the scene right after, but I'll just jump to it. They theorize that by changing Battelle's DNA, she gained the genetic memory of basically how to combat the true evil in the universe, which is the Vesda. And that's like as best I can explain it, because I got really confused with the way they explained it. They kept going around in circles talking about how everyone has a fight or flight response to certain instinctual things, and because you changed my DNA, I somehow am connected to that. I don't fucking know. I'll be honest, the explanation they gave was not a very good one in my opinion, because I'm no, you are really confusing me and making some big leaps, which do in fact turn out to be true, but they also boil it down to destiny as a big thing. She was destined to be changed. She was destined to be there to stop the Vesda. M'Benga was destined to be there to open the portal. And I suppose that means Gamble was also destined to pick up the orb and then become possessed by one of them. And it's just, they do a lot with this whole predetermined destiny thing, which I hate that personally. I actually really despise that, because I don't believe in destiny or fate or any of that nonsense, to be perfectly honest. No offense to anyone that does. That's just my personal opinion. So I did not jive with this being a major part of the episode. And they kind of try to science-y explain it away by saying, oh, well, it's because of interdimensional principles. Cause does not determine effect in these cases. And I'm I feel like that's playing really loose with these rules here. I don't know. I was not jiving with this whole scene and its explanation of everything.
I mean, for me, the biggest problem is this explanation that just because she's had the genetic material of the Gorn and the Illyrian and some random plant in her, this has enabled her to access genetic memory that enables her to fight back the demons, for want of a better term, with magic. Because that then brings in the problem of, oh, well, in that case, let's just give everyone in Starfleet a solution of Gorn, Illyrian, and this plant, and then everyone in Starfleet can do magic.
Or just turn into a statue.
Or turn into a random statue. It's just a bit nonsense. Yes, flight and flight is an evolutionary response to various situations that humans have evolved through. That's because of our evolutionary history. It's become part of us because it helped us to survive. I don't think you can just inject yourself with the DNA of another species and access that.
Well, I mean, again,
it's just nonsense.
It is kind of leaning into the 4.5 Vulcans episode of this idea of there being genetic memory in the first place.
Predisposition to anything.
Which is kind of just bullshit. There's no science that will back that up. So it is kind of just nonsense, I feel like. But a scene I kind of skipped over here to get to the explanation was M'Benga almost kills himself in order to, thwart Gamble's plan. And as he's trying to do that, Gamble goes to stop him and then gets thrown into another portal, and they're separated for the time being. And I will admit, I did kind of like that little beat, just because I thought it was good to see M'Benga be oh, your whole plan rests on me being here for you. Well, let me take myself out of the equation. He had no hesitation, was willing to make the sacrifice in order to save the day. It was a nice little moment for the character, I felt like. We then go to Battelle and Pike trying to get the portal open so they can go and fight Gamble, but they can't because it's only programmed to open for M'Benga and Gamble. They have to be there together. So
yes, the Gamble's Vesda thing can create enough energy to open it specifically for them.
So they have to figure out, how do we like artificially create this energy? And they decide, all right, we can do this with 2 starships firing their phasers at the exact same time, at the exact same place, in perfect sync. But they realize they're going to have to do this manually, which I still don't know why they have to do it manually. I'm like, you're telling me you can't program that somehow?
Yeah, that's... I have so many problems with the logistics of this whole sequence of events.
I mean, it seems like a simple enough thing to just program the coordinates on both ships, program the timing, program everything, and just have it go at the exact same time. But they're like, oh, well, we can't do that for XYZ reason that I didn't understand.
We can't do that, so we have to do a mind meld between, and yet another mind meld between Spock and Kirk. Yet again, Kirk has to be brought into an episode where he doesn't really need to be, and they'll be then telepathically connected to one another, so they can take the helms of the starships and complete this synchronized maneuver they go through in order to ensure that the phasers strike the target at exactly the right moment in perfect synchronicity. And like you say, it's just nonsense because the ship's computer would be able to manage all of that perfectly well. Like, this would be one instance where you didn't want to do it manually. The computer would be preferable in this situation. But more than that is just the other thing of, so you're going to fire these phasers at this very specific target on the planet's surface. Well, firing through the atmosphere is from space, firing through the atmosphere of the planet is a terrible idea because of the refraction of energy, dissipation of energy. So to do it properly, you'd want the ships to be in atmosphere when you do it. That's one problem. Second problem, the phasers are still going to be releasing heat, radiation at that very specific point right in next to where Pike and Battelle are. So you're going to be irradiating and boiling everyone to death around them, regardless of how in sync and perfect your shot's accuracy is. You can't just stand next to a starship grade phaser firing and be fine. These are weapons that can glass planets if you really want them to.
Which they go out of their way to say in the episode. They're like, one mistake and we destroy the whole planet.
Yeah, so the idea that people standing within a couple of meters of this thing are fine is just, it's nitpicking the nonsense, but there's so much of the nonsense. And this is something that has plagued season 3. The problems are not big, they're nitpicky problems, I admit, but there are so many of them throughout every single episode that it just starts racking up.
Yeah, but you know, they do this. It works perfectly. The portal opens, so Battelle and Pike head through, where we learn that Pike is utterly useless in this situation, as kind of expected to be. Don't really know what he planned on doing other than being like emotional support for Battelle, I guess. But this is where she starts glowing, and this was, for me, this was the moment in the episode where I'm like, you're losing me here.
It's just so cheesy.
Yeah, I was like, I really felt like I was watching a Marvel movie for a second. It was like looking at Captain Marvel just starting to like charge up her powers, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. But then we do go into probably my favorite sequence of the episode, because it does rely more heavily on emotion and kind of grounds the story a little bit, which I did appreciate. So we get these flashes of what their life together could have been like. Like, they have a child and a dog and know they're running out of time before Pike's accident, but then suddenly it doesn't happen. So they get to have even more time together. They grow old together. Their daughter and I'm assuming Admiral April's son, Elijah?
Yes.
Yeah, they get engaged, but the illusion is starting to fall apart at this point. But they grow even older, and while Battelle is on her deathbed, Pike goes to answer the door, and they finally come back to reality of what's going on here. And again, I liked this.
It's a
beat
nice sequence.
Just because, again,
it's a good sequence.
It makes me feel something. I was like, oh, I do really like these characters. I do feel bad about this situation. But everything around it is kind of just like, I don't know. It doesn't really feel very earned in this moment.
That's exactly what I was about to say. This episode, and in fact this season, has not really earned this emotional beat that they deliver at this point in time. Especially given that, in reality, most of this season has been gimmicky, nostalgic Trek episodes that rely on Trek tropes that have been repeated so often at this point. It's a nice sequence, and it's obviously there to try to hit you in the feels, but it didn't get me because I knew, this is just manipulation. If the whole season had been this great quest about trying to cure Batel of her Gorn parasite, and then had discovered the Vesda thing, and then there had been more problems down the way, and if this had been like the final end to it all where they discover that there's no way of saving her in reality from whatever was going to happen and they have to sacrifice her to stop the Vesda getting out, then maybe it would feel more earned. But in this circumstance it doesn't, because not only does she just stop the Vesda, like she just stops them, nothing bad happens. Like, apart from a few people on that planet stabbing out their eyes, nothing bad happens in this episode.
Yeah.
The Vesda don't escape. They don't even get close to escaping. They just pop out the hole, and she does the Q equivalent of clicking her fingers, and they all go back into the hole. That's it.
And then she turns into a statue, and then
she turns into a statue,
and she's stuck as that statue, I suppose, for all eternity. And again, I told you this when we watched the episode. I do appreciate the fact that they don't just give Batel superpowers to use like throughout this series. It is for this one specific moment, and the consequence of that is that she is, immortalized as this statue and doesn't get to live her life with Pike or anything like that. I feel like, in a way, that is some form of consequence that happens because of it, which I appreciate. But I also agree, it just feels easy. Like, she literally just gets rid of them. Like, the moment they get out, they don't inhabit any of the people on the planet. They don't kill any of our known characters, which I think would have been a great opportunity to get rid of a known character that isn't in the original series, like maybe La'an or something. But
there's no weight, there's no stakes.
There's no stakes or weight or anything to it. It's just like, okay, you're out. Well, no, you're not. And now that whole storyline is closed and wrapped in a neat little ribbon, and it just feels too neat, it feels too easy, and it feels like a big wasted potential. And it is exactly the same thing they did with the Gorn. They started the season by saying, oh no, this big threat, put them all to sleep. And we end the season with them saying, oh no, this big threat, put them all to sleep. And it's like, are we just going to continue to do that throughout this whole series? Because I feel like we're not being very creative here, or actually like realizing the potential of some of these storylines. But anyways, we then go to a sort of montage where we see Corby and Chapel discussing how they can now study the Vesda safely, which I don't agree with that being a line of dialogue, because they've specifically said throughout this episode, cause does not predate effect, so what tells you that it's now safe to do anything with the Vesda? I feel like that doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. We then get another nostalgia scene of Kirk and Spock playing 3D chess with each other, and they embarrass La'an because they had the mind meld, and Kirk now knows that they do their dance lessons together. I just could care less about this scene, to be perfectly honest. It was... I don't know. I don't like the implied love triangle issues that La'an has with Kirk knowing that. I don't like the nostalgia bait of them playing chess together. All in all, I just didn't really enjoy that beat. I did enjoy this beat though, where Pike actually mourns Batel, and Una tries to console him, and he's like, I'm just not ready to talk about it. And I was like, I actually do like that it's not completely just brushed over. It's clear that Pike is affected by this, so that was nice. And during this whole montage, Pike is explaining, the duality of love and how every memory keeps them alive forever, and it's like a cliched but decent take on the situation, I suppose. And then we get our final scene on the bridge where they all discuss how this new research they've been doing with the Vesda has uncovered tons and tons of new planets and places to visit. So they begin traveling towards a new M-class planet, and we wrap up the season. And it's just very...
There's no big...
I'm like,
there's no
okay.
big... There's no cliffhanger ending or anything. It's just literally we've found a whole, there's loads more new stuff to go and explore that's worthy of another 5-year mission or a 5-year mission, and then that's it. The episode ends on it's a fairly damp squib of a note.
Yeah, I feel that way about the episode as a whole as well. Like, I don't utterly hate this episode, but I also don't really like it either. It's just very meh. It's just, it's there. It sure is an episode. It was the episode of all time.
It puts the cork on what has been a very disappointing season. And after all... bringing this to our thoughts about the season as a whole, after all of the groundwork they laid with season 1 and 2, after the cliffhanger ending at the end of season 2 being actually something that got me enthused to have the show back, and after making us wait 2 bloody years for 10 episodes, which complete other conversation, but it's frustrating that after 2 years of waiting, this season has just been really poor.
Yeah.
There's so many of these episodes that are just not worth watching again. I would not watch the season finale again. I would not watch the wedding episode again. I would not want to watch 4.5 Vulcans again. There's some episodes in this season that were just straight up rotten for the sort of messaging they had in them, especially in the later half of the season.
Yeah, the What is Starfleet and 4.5 Vulcans combo back-to-back was really awful in my opinion. I'm like, that's 2 episodes in a row where you have said some deeply troubling things that genuinely bother me. Not just like, oh, I didn't like the episode. I'm like, no, that's kind of like fucked messaging, actually, where I'm concerned that you're putting that out into the world. And for them to do that back to back was not a good look, I don't think.
No.
And then there's other episodes that I'm just like, sure, it's good, but like I feel like good is kind of a stretch. It's just okay. Like the holodeck episode, I was like,
another
okay.
holodeck episode.
The Kirk episode I thought was just okay. The Erica episode last week I thought had potential to be at least good, and then they just fucked it with the ending.
Fucked it at the ending.
So yeah, just all in all, like throughout the entire season, it's just been letdown after letdown, which I'm really deeply saddened by that, because I have really enjoyed this show in its first 2 seasons quite a lot. And I'm desperately hoping that season 4 can get them back on track, because again, the first 2 seasons, I was all for it. Sure, there were a couple episodes in there that I was like, it's just okay. But I don't think there were any like truly bad episodes, whereas this season has given me some very bad episodes and only managed to give me okay episodes otherwise, maybe with the exception of the 5th episode. I did really like the 5th episode.
Yeah, and this is the biggest problem with streaming culture as a whole. But yes, no Star Trek season, even legacy Star Trek season, was ever perfect. But you got 1 a year and you got 20 episodes. The chances were at least half of them would be worth watching, and there'd be some crackers in there too. Nowadays, we wait 2 years for 10 episodes, and 1 of them is worth watching, and there might be 2 others that are okay, but not brilliant. It's like, what's the point of being a fan if you wait 2 years and you get pretty meh as a result at the end of it.
I suppose it's better than pretty awful.
And of course, now we already know what's happening in the future. We have 16 episodes left of this show.
Not a lot of time
One
left.
more full season and one half season. That's not a lot of time. It's less than a full season of Legacy Star Trek. And in that period, they've got to obviously lead into TOS. They've got to do decent stuff with the characters. But we've got no Gorn left. We've got no Vesda left. So are they going to dream up a new big bad guy for season 4 and a little bit of season 5?
Are we just going to do Klingons a whole bunch of times?
Are we just going to have more stupid episodes like the Muppet one that they've already teased?
I'm trying to stay open-minded about the Muppet episode, but I don't know. That, in my opinion, just sounds too silly. But that's what I thought when the musical episode was announced. I was like, ooh, I feel like a musical episode could be really cringy. I don't know how I feel about that. And then I ended up loving it. So maybe somehow, some way, they can make the Muppet episode actually decent, but I have my reservations.
I don't know. I'm seriously reserving that one, because at least it's a whole universe where everything's a musical, or they're just doing musical stuff. Okay, the Star Trek Lower Decks crossover episode, yeah, I could see it happening, but a whole universe where everyone is hand puppets, it's not even anywhere close to being as realistic as Boimler and Mariner ending up crossing over to a different time. So I don't know, I've just been so disappointed with this season, and we're gonna wait 2 more years for the next season.
I mean, we might not, just because the writer's strike did really slow down the time in between season 2 and 3. So there's a chance we could get the next season a little more speedily, but again, the nature of streaming, it really is usually a 2-year wait. That's kind of just the norm, so that might be what we have to wait for season 4, and
And unfortunately, we don't have a cliffhanger ending that kind of makes us want to watch the next season. Like, it's just ended. So I'm like, who's going to be eager for the next season? Because I'm not. Like,
I think
I don't have any reason to be eager.
I think I'm a little more positive on this season than you are, but I'm also not jazzed on it. Like, I'm not super disappointed with it, but I am disappointed. I do feel like it was a pretty sharp decline in quality compared to the first 2 seasons.
Very.
And I'm sure when they announce season 4 and we get a trailer for it, I'll get jazzed again, but I can't say the same for a majority of audiences, which is
considering
kind of a
the show is already losing. The from at least what it seems to be just from our own viewership, but also from what I've seen from other bigger YouTube channels and on Facebook groups, this show does not have a particularly strong following for various reasons. This season did double down on some of those reasons that people don't like. The, fucking around with TOS stuff, and the gimmick episodes being too prevalent, and the stupidity being too prevalent, and
in this particular season, relationships being super prevalent, again, that was a big criticism with Chapel and Spock throughout the first 2 seasons, and they quadrupled down on that. They said, oh, people don't like that? How about everyone on the ship gets into a relationship that no one cares about? I was like, why are we doing this? Why are there so many episodes revolving around these fucking relationships?
There was a message on Facebook that I saw the other day, which was something along the lines of Spock can't even enter a turbo lift without someone trying to get with him.
It's true. And it's frustrating, but I choose to remain somewhat optimistic for season 4. Even if it's a delusional optimism, I'm like, I'm hoping that it's good. Like, I want the show to succeed, and I'm also hoping that Starfleet Academy is
yes,
gonna be
Starfleet
good.
Academy is the next big thing, which I mean, I will give the first episode a watch with you, and we'll see.
I could see it going either way.
Yes. If they can make me care about the 32nd century by providing an actual, a show that feels like this is Starfleet Academy and feels like trying to educate us about the world of the 32nd century, which was something that Discovery didn't really want to do, then yeah, maybe they'll get me on board. But if it's just a high school musical full of teen angst and teen drama with a veneer of Star Trek put over it, then yeah, they'll lose me pretty fast.
Yeah, but we'll give it a watch and we'll cover it, at least to begin with, as long as it holds our interest to a degree.
And obviously we got to finish Prodigy. We're getting through Prodigy.
I'm enjoying
Season
it,
2
but
has
it's
been
not as
interesting so far, but it's
not as good as I feel like other people have been saying it was. And maybe we're just not to the point where the story has kind of clicked together, but I'm like, it's good, it's interesting, but it's not like great, which I feel like everyone is like, just wait till you get to season 2, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty good, but I'm not really seeing the hype.
Yeah, having Wesley Crusher and the EMH back in a good show does not make. You kind of have to have the meat of this sandwich, and I don't know, it's kind of feeling lacking in the meat department at the moment. But we'll finish season 2 and then we'll give our thoughts about that. But yes, when it comes to Strange New Worlds season 3, I would probably rate it like a 4, maybe 3.5, because some of those episodes were so truly demonstrative that they don't understand Star Trek.
I think I would give it a 5 out of 10, like perfectly in the middle for me. It's a very meh season overall. Not a good grade, not a truly awful grade, but it's there.
I don't think it was better than season 3 of Discovery.
I don't think it was better than season 5 of Discovery. I actually quite liked season 5 of Discovery.
It was the strongest season.
And I feel like this is lesser than that, which is very unfortunate.
But let us know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have stuck with Strange New Worlds all this time, what did you think of the final episode? What did you think of the season as a whole? Will you be watching season 4? Maybe what do you hope they do with season 4, considering it seems that they've set up a sort of a clean slate, as it were, to do something new with it. Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We'll be back to non-review episodes at last, and we do have a bit of a humdinger planned for our next one, which should be interesting. So, yeah.
We're going to piss some people off.
We are going to, well, you might piss some people off. I don't know if I will.
I think it's going to be you who will. I think my side actually has more of a following.
Oh, I think I've got actual Star Trek episodes that prove my side of the debate against yours. So we'll have to see how that goes, but we won't spoil too much until then. Until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.